Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanishalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinamine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. In this session, we'll be discussing from the 34th verse of the 14th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavanapi Govindo Brahmanyo Bhaktavatsalah Kachit Pure Sudharmayam Sukhamaste Suhradvritaha. The meaning of this verse is Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gives pleasure to the cows, the senses and the brahmanas, who is very affectionate towards his devotees, enjoying the pious assembly at Dwarakapuri, surrounded by friends. So, Yudhishthira is now making inquiry about Krishna. Krishna is particularly qualified as Bhagavan, Govinda, Brahmanyo Bhaktavatsala. So these are all different adjectives used to describe accurately that the Supreme Lord Krishna, what is his actual position. So Srila Prabhupada particularly explains this point in the purport. He says, here in this particular verse, the Lord is described as Bhagavan, Govinda, Brahmanya and Bhaktavatsala. He is Bhagavan Swayam, or the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, full with all opulences, all power, all knowledge, all beauty, all fame and all renunciation. This is the definition of Bhagavan in the Parashara Smriti. Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashasha shriyaha jnana vairagyayoshchaiva shannam bhaga itingana. Bhaga means opulences. Bhagavan means one who possesses to the fullest extent all these six opulences, and they have been listed here by Prabhupada. No one is equal to or greater than him, asamordhva. He is Govinda. The name Govinda for Krishna is very, very special name. What does it mean? He is Govinda because he is the pleasure of the cows and the senses. He gives always pleasure to the cows and to the senses. Now, Prabhupada makes a remark about Krishna giving pleasure to our senses. Srila Prabhupada says, those who have purified their senses by the devotional service of the Lord can render unto him real service and thereby derive transcendental pleasure out of such purified senses. So if you want to derive pleasure out of your senses, present senses, you have to purify them. That purification is described as sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam. To purify the senses of their material contamination is a process of bhakti. Because only purified senses can perceive transcendental pleasure. Otherwise, these materially contaminated senses, there is only some material sensation which sometimes is interpreted as pleasure and sometimes as pain. Material pleasure and material pain. It's a sensation, that's all. It is nothing permanent. It is nothing of substance. This material pleasure and pain. Transcendental pleasure is different. Sukham atyantikam yattad buddhi grahyam atindriyam. This Bhagavad Gita description of transcendental pleasure. So Krishna gives transcendental pleasure to our spiritual senses or purified senses. Only the impure conditioned living being cannot derive any pleasure from the senses. Impure conditioned. Condition means under the influence of the three modes of material nature. And impure because the senses are contaminated by material contamination. A material conception, material desires, material lording over material nature. Lording over material nature. Independent material enjoyment. These are all the reasons why we are described as impure conditioned soul. We cannot derive any pleasure from the senses. Being illusioned by false pleasures of the senses, one becomes a servant of the senses. Godasa. This is the description in the Shastra. Go means senses. Dasa means the servant. We all are servant of the senses. We seek out sense pleasures, being driven by the senses, demanding for pleasure, material pleasure. Therefore, we need His protection for our interest. We require Krishna's protection for our interest. The Lord is a protector of cows and the Brahminical culture. Go Brahmana Hitaya cha. This is a description in the Shastra. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya cha. Go Brahmana. He is the protector of cows and the Brahminical culture. A society devoid of cow protection and Brahminical culture is not under the direct protection of the Lord. It's like our society, present society, in this material world. Devoid of cow protection and Brahminical culture. The majority of the people, they don't care to give protection to cows and to the Brahminical culture. And therefore, such people who are not giving cow protection, who are not giving protection to the Brahminical culture, are described as not under the direct protection of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Just as Prabhupada gives an example to help us understand, the prisoners in the jails are not under the protection of the king, but under the protection of a severe agent of the king. It's like even in modern government arrangement, the citizens who are law-abiding are under direct protection of the government. But those who are law-breakers and who are punished in jail, they are under the protection of the jail superintendent. That is the arrangement. Without cow protection and cultivation of Brahminical qualities in human society, at least for a section of the members of society, no human civilization can prosper at any length. Prosperity in our human society depends on two things. Cow protection. Cows should never be killed because they are very dear to Krishna and they are very, very useful animals. Every part of the cow is useful. Elsewhere, Srila Prabhupada points out, every part of the cow. It gives the most wonderful form of food, milk, cow's milk for human beings. And it's after the cow dies, even when it's living, cow urine and cow dung are very, very, very valuable for human society. So many ways cow dung and cow urine can be used by civilized human beings. And after the cow dies, natural death of course, then the cow hide, the cow skin is very, very useful. Then the cow's hoofs, the cow's horns, all are useful. The cow's tail, very, very useful. All of them are useful for human society. So cow is a wonderful animal, wonderful. So such a animal should never be killed by anybody. They should be protected to live their entire lifespan with nice care by human beings. By Brahmanical culture, the development of the dormant qualities of goodness, namely truthfulness, equanimity, sense control, forbearance, simplicity, general knowledge, transcendental knowledge, and firm faith in the Vedic wisdom. These are the 9 qualities by which Brahmanas work. This is the transcendental qualities of the Brahmanical culture. One can become a Brahmana and thus see the Lord as He is. If we become, anybody can become a qualified Brahmana simply by following the Brahmanical principles and awaken the good qualities within by practicing Brahmanical culture. And then one can see the Lord as He is. After surpassing the Brahmanical perfection, one has to become a devotee of the Lord. So, elevate yourself to the Brahmanical platform, you become a Brahmana with qualifications, and then further elevate yourself to become a devotee to the transcendental platform. And then in the transcendental platform, what happens? His loving affection in the form of proprietor, master, friend, son and lover can be transcendentally achieved. Krishna is related to every living being on the spiritual platform. So Krishna is related either as a transcendental proprietor or a transcendental master or a transcendental friend or a transcendental son or a transcendental lover. The 5 kinds of relationships, primary relationships with Krishna, which every living entity has on the spiritual platform. That's being mentioned. The stage of a devotee which attracts the transcendental affection of the Lord does not develop unless one has developed the qualities of a Brahmana as above mentioned. Sometimes devotees think we have nothing to do with this mode of goodness. Of course, on the spiritual platform, there is no question of any touch of any of the modes, neither goodness nor passion nor ignorance. It's a transcendental state. But to come to the transcendental state, one has to first of all elevate oneself to the platform of goodness, above Rajoguna and Tamoguna. These 2 base qualities, Rajoguna and Tamoguna, or passion and ignorance, are degrading our existence, human existence. Degrading. So one has to rise to the Brahmanical platform, the platform of goodness, and then develop all the transcendental qualifications to come to the spiritual platform, Vaishnava. Brahmana, Vaishnava. The Lord is inclined to a Brahmana of quality, not of false prestige. Some people claim I am a Brahmana by birth, though they don't have the qualities of a Brahmana. Such Brahmanas are not the special attention or subject of special attention of Krishna. Those who are not Brahmana by quality. Simply claiming to be Brahmana doesn't attract the attention of the Lord. Those who are less than a Brahmana by qualification cannot establish any relation with the Lord. Just as fire cannot be kindled from the raw earth unless there is wood, although there is a relation between wood and the earth. So this is the example given in the first canto of the Bhagavatam in the second chapter. There is earth, there is wood, and there is fire. So, fire can be kindled in the wood when earth has been transformed into wood, firewood. Only then fire can be kindled. Raw earth you cannot kindle a fire. Since the Lord is all perfect in himself, there could not be any question of his welfare. So Maharaj Yudhishthira did not inquire about the welfare of Krishna. Because the Lord is all perfect, he is eternally the Supreme Lord. So there is no question of his welfare. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.